This video is all about art commissions and why you should maybe not do them. Or should you? When it comes to art commissions, there are several things to consider. The main aspects to think about are money, time, and your creative freedom. And unfortunately, there are a lot of problems with art commissions, which is why I do not recommend you do them. The first problem is that when it comes to money, most ordinary people don't really want to pay you that much money for it. Rather, most of the time, a lot of people expect you to do it for free even. They assume that just because you like drawing and painting in general, that it would be a pleasure for you to draw their dog or horse or a portrait of them or a caricature or whatever. To them it's kind of like blasphemy if you just raise the thought of wanting some money for it, you know? So the problem is that you gotta find some people who are actually willing to pay you money for it. And even then, if you have found those people, a lot of people are willing to pay you money, but not very much, you know? And it's understandable, you know? Art is a luxury item. It's not essential to our survival or something, and not really necessary for everyday life. It's just nice to have, you know? So people are not as willing to spend money on art as on other things, you know? And even if you found someone who is willing to pay you enough money that you think is okay, there is still the issue that some people just don't pay in the end. They promise you all the money in the world, and in the end, you've put hours and hours into your art and nothing happens. You don't get the money. And all those hours creating the drawing or painting for them was for nothing, basically. Which brings us to the second problem, which is time. Generally, people have no idea how much time it can take to create a detailed drawing or painting. For me, it can take up to 10 hours or something to draw a pencil portrait on A4 paper. And to make it worth your time, you gotta charge an adequate amount of money, you know? And people just don't get it, you know? They would rather have stuff for free from you. And in the end, nothing's worth more than your own time. So you gotta decide for yourself on a project-to-project basis if this is worth your time. The third problem is the issue of scalability. When it comes to art commissions, you're kinda limited in how much you can grow them as a business. Your time is limited and you can only do so much art commissions. Even if you do all day long, you would still be limited in the amount of output you could do. And then you can only charge so much money, you know? Of course, you can raise your prices over time, but there's a point where people won't pay you anymore because it's just too expensive. The fourth problem with art commissions is that they can often severely limit your creativity and your creative freedom. Most people actually get into art because they like drawing and painting and want to paint the stuff that they like themselves. And if you do art commissions, you're kinda offering your art as a service, and that might suck the fun out of it because you're just drawing things other people actually want you to draw. And if that isn't coincidentally the same things you like to draw, well, you gotta make a decision if that's how you want to spend your time or not. Now, these are the reasons that I personally don't do art commissions very often, but I want to continue the video in a more positive way because it's not all dark and gloomy. Art commissions can have their upsides and you can actually make it work if you're committed. There are actually quite a few artists in the world that make a full-time living every year with doing art commissions. And if you actually have the right kind of clients who actually have a bit of money and are willing to pay, it can actually work quite well if you make a name for yourself in the industry. Also, I think the barrier for entry is really low when doing art commissions. It's basically the quickest way to make money with your art. And word of mouth can be pretty powerful. It can all start with just one job you do, and when people recommend you, it spreads like wildfire and you get all the jobs in the world. And you could be doing art commissions all day long if you wanted to. For example, a few years ago I did this caricature in a Simpsons style from colleagues at work. A lot of people in the company loved it and wanted one for themselves, for their family and their friends. And before you knew it, I had quite a few jobs like this. In the end, I didn't really continue doing these kinds of commissions because they were always the same process and were just not fun anymore. It was always the same, basically. Now, the cool thing is, you don't really have to say, I don't do art commissions in general. You can just decide on a project-to-project basis if you take on this job or not. And deciding which job to take is actually pretty easy. The first thing I ask myself is, will it be fun? I'm personally a big comic fan, so the commission I'm working on the background of the video here was pretty fun for me. Just the thought of drawing the Scooby-Doo characters sounded like fun to me. The next thing to consider is how much time will it take you, approximately. because even if it's fun, you gotta have the time for it. And third, how much is the client going to pay? Is he or she paying enough to make it worth your while or not? So in the end, you have to decide for yourself if you want to do art commissions and how many of them you want to do. And it all depends on how much money you want, how much time you have, and how much creative freedom you need. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.